Welcome back. As we've journeyed together these past few weeks, you've discovered your greatest talents and learned how to maximize them. You've also learned how to help others maximize their greatest talents in partnerships that benefit everyone. Now, let's take another step. What would your congregation look like if all the leaders and members of your church embraced a strengths-based approach to ministry? Let's go even further. What if every Christian learned and maximized their greatest talents to help accomplish the mission of the church universally? Wouldn't that be an awesome display of God's power? Power God has already shared with us through our natural talents? I think that may have been what the founders of the early church had in mind. Let's take a look at a description of the early church found in the 2nd chapter of Acts. Let's turn now to the 2nd chapter of Acts, the story of the early church, starting with verse 43. Awe came upon everyone, because many wonders and signs were being done by the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all, as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the good will of all the people. And day by day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. This gives us a glimpse of life in the early church and really should serve as the model for life in the church today. As we study this brief passage, we find 3 characteristics of the early church. 1, they had unity. Unity in life and in spirit. In a world in which there were strict social divisions, the church was the place where these divisions were torn down. People were valued, not for their wealth or position, but because of the unique person God created them to be. 2, the early church cared for the poor. In a world in which wealth and poverty was seen as divine reward and punishment, the church went against the norm and said that individuals matter to us because individuals matter to God, regardless of their wealth and position. And how were these individuals going to develop their talents and strengths and gifts if their basic needs were going unmet? The church set out to correct this situation. 3, they worshiped God. They never forgot that God was the source of all they were and all they had, and they never passed up an opportunity to give thanks. And God used these ordinary people with unique talents and strengths and gifts to change the world. One reason why the early church was so appealing to new converts was its emphasis on the value of the individual in the eyes of God. The people of the first century received a liberating message from Paul in his letter to the Galatians. There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. The message of the early church was, you are uniquely created by God. You matter to God. Christ died and rose again so that you could be set free to be all God created you to be, in this life and in the life beyond death's door. It's no wonder the church grew by leaps and bounds in those early days. Things have certainly changed, haven't they? But imagine a church in which everyone is encouraged and equipped to maximize their greatest talents. Imagine the impact that following our God-given talents could have on evangelization and mission, sharing the good news of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection in a hurting world. Imagine the impact that living through strength could have on our stewardship. Imagine the change that could sweep across the church. Focusing on maximizing our greatest talents can foster a sense of real community, because in a strengths community, all talents and gifts are recognized as equally important. And every member can be a resident expert in some area, someone whose expertise is based on their God-given talents. With our dazzling array of talents all working together, we would have blended teams capable of carrying out all of the missions and ministries of every congregation. When your church aspires to that vision, you'll begin to understand and recreate the experience of the early church recorded in Acts. And day by day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. That is my prayer for your congregation. And by individually and collectively maximizing your greatest talents, you can make it happen.